You are listening to Leading the Factory Forward with your host, Lynn Friest. We share interviews with manufacturing experts and strategies for embracing the digital future, recruiting a new workforce, finding new business. Lynn is an advanced manufacturing strategist and leadership consultant who is on a mission to show manufacturing leaders how to improve their current operations while preparing for a digital future. And here's your host, Lynn Friest.
Welcome to this episode of Leading the Factory Forward. Today's episode is number 35, and it's about virtual teams. And this is part 4 in our series on finding your workforce and developing talent. Just a quick review, our first episode was about the silver entrepreneur. In our second episode, it was about understanding and speaking with millennials. And then in our third episode, we talked about how do you connect with local apprenticeship programs, again, to help you build and locate talent. And then our final episode next week will be lessons from the book Toyota Talent. So today's topic, connecting with virtual teams. As a small business owner, what are you facing? Some of the things are you're overwhelmed with things to do. You're often buried in administrative activities. And you find yourself not spending enough time on important work versus the urgent work that just shows up at your door every day. And then also in a small organization, you may need 25 skill sets, but you certainly can't afford 25 people. And you'll never find the one person that can do all 25 things. So you need to think in today's world about where you need hours of a skill. And this is similar to working with your attorney or accountant or tax person. Again, you're not hiring them full-time. They're just there to provide skills you need for a given amount of time. Now, of course, the good news is, in today's world, it is possible to build a virtual team to get those hours of skilled work that are needed, and it's easier than it's ever been before. Now, you do need to be able to hand off work, and that's always been true, whether the person you need to hand it off to is 20 feet from you or whether they're 2,000 miles from you. Again, setting the stage, a quote from a book by Michael Hyatt called Your World-Class Assistant. Are you stuck doing work you should hand off? You want to make progress on your most important priorities, but tiny tasks, reminders, and work you hate are crowding out your schedule. Now, you could try to break through these with productivity skills or initiatives, and do it on your own, but even that's probably not likely to succeed. So what are some of the skills that you need as a small business owner? Again, the book by Chris Ducker, Virtual Freedom, How to Work with Virtual Staff to Buy More Time, Become More Productive, and Build Your Dream Business. So in this book, he suggests several things. He says, think about creating 3 lists of work. Work you don't like doing, work you don't know how to do, and then work that you know how to do but you really shouldn't be doing. Again, following up on an earlier podcast, think about using that 80-20 principle. 20% of your activity is going to create 80% of your value and your money. So what are some of the broad categories that generate cash in your business as a small business owner? Obviously, sales is the first thing that usually comes to mind. Then we talk about customer relationships and retention. Again, that idea, it's often easier to sell to somebody you've already sold to than go out and find brand new customers. But then there's a whole idea of innovation. You have to be prepared to reinvent your factory as you move forward into the future. And then finally, there's the execution. That may be work that you have to do, but there may be other ways you can get some help even in the execution phase. So now in a blog post by Chris Ducker, he talks about things you could outsource. And he gets real granular here to very specific things. So it's answering customer service emails, tickets, or call support, doing calendar management for you, doing appointment scheduling, making travel arrangements and planning, creating and managing spreadsheets, preparing PowerPoints or other presentations, checking and following up on voicemails, sending client invoices, the basic bookkeeping that needs to be done in every business. And then there's the ideas around project management and training tasks for new employees like we talked about earlier. And of course, then we jump into a whole other category of, I'll call them more technical tasks. So there's the things around web marketing. In today's digital marketing world, there are a lot of different elements of that. It's actually not one person, it's actually a whole variety of skills. Again, you may need some engineering work done for you. It may be on a project basis, or it may be something you just need a few hours of help each week. And then finally, things like helping support the scheduling in your factory or your products or your shipping. So those are things that are often a little more technical, but still very necessary. But the fundamental thing is, before you can have somebody help you do these things, and whether they be in person or virtual, you have to know your processes and your systems. You can really only hand off work that you have defined. And you have to be ready for someone else to do it for you successfully. In other words, you have to not only know what it is to hand it off, but then be willing to let go of it. This kind of reminds me way back in episode 3, where we talked about the book Run, Improve, Grow, Your Roadmap from Firefighting to Bold Business Growth by Ray Attia with Definity Partners. And he talked about in that book and in that podcast, we talked about a framework to develop your frontline people to execute the day-to-day operations so you could help the next level of people work on improving operations, and then you could focus as the owner on growing operations. But in the end, a lot of the change that's needed in any of these activities are changes you need to make. So it's not a hire somebody else to take care of your mess. You got to figure out what it is you need done. Now, they can also help you document processes. They can help you innovate on processes, but it truly is the leader's work to get started. So just a little bit about my personal experience using a virtual team or virtual talent. Some time ago, I hired a virtual assistant. And again, one of the things that I'm probably not as strong on is things like editing, copywriting, and some of the marketing methods. So I hired a person to help me on those. It's only for a minimal amount of time every week or month, but somebody that I could do the drafts, I could put the ideas of what I wanted to have happen out there, but they had the technical expertise or skills to actually get the copywriting done, get the editing done on my blog post, those kinds of things. Now, the other thing I did more recently as I was working on this podcast is I decided, okay, I was struggling trying to get all the technical details of a podcast done. And I kind of could do it, but I realized this isn't where my value is being added. While the long run, the podcast is important and helps me share with people, it's not technically my skill set. So I hired a person to do the podcast, and they do the editing, the producing, and the publishing of that podcast. And in fact, the group of people doing that, they all have their own virtual team. So again, not everybody, they're not doing all elements of that with just one person. They actually have a group of people doing that. So again, you may hire a person that has a team of their own to work on some of these things. So then I think of some of the things that I've used. So literally the one group I used is called Priority VA, or the Priority Virtual Assistants. And a quote from their website: "An executive assistant should be a stabilizer, helping you tackle the big and small projects critical to your success, growth, momentum, and scale. Don't sacrifice your dreams, delay the important, or put life on hold, but gain the sanity-saving momentum you need as a busy executive or small business owner." The second thing I used was somebody to help do the production for my podcast. And this was an organization called Emerald City Pro. Danny Osmond is the leader of that group. And quote from their website is, "We'll take care of all of it from the ground up. There's absolutely no need for you to waste time figuring out the ins and outs of how to produce a professional, a great-sounding podcast. From the initial planning and design of the show to distributing and promoting it, we'll take care of every podcast production detail. No stress involved on your part." So again, that's, just a great example of I can do the content. I'm recording this podcast. A lot of the other details, you might say I'm the performer, as it were, but I'm not the one who does all the backstage work. I've got other people that know how to do that much better than I do. Now, getting into some other general operations that I'll just share, and there are a wide variety of these sources and tasks. A lot of things just are very possible, but one of them is called Upwork. And again, this is a site, and these have links in the show notes, but there you can hire freelancers or agencies. Some of their skill sets involve data science and analytics, engineering and architecture. So if you need mechanical engineering freelancers, people are there. Design and writing. If you need some people to do a logo design or do presentations or even videos for you, this is a place where you can hire talent by the hour, as I guess I'll call it, or by the project to help you get done what you need. I mean, they even offer translation services and customer service freelancers. So again, these are different arenas where you can have individuals come to help you get the work done that you need done. The next one is a little bit different one. This is called Fiverr. It's Fiverr. But this is maybe for the little projects you might want to do. And they tend to be in the area of, marketing and things like that. Fiverr literally says, you put these out for bid. People will say what they're willing to do your piece of work for. So you can have logo designs. If your website is built on WordPress, they have people who will do projects on WordPress. They can do voiceovers. So if you need a marketing campaign that has something, it's really easy to do that. Obviously, graphics and design. And then if there are particular programming issues, you can find things here that they'll do for you. In theory, it's $5, but obviously for any kind of a project, it'll take a little bit more than that. But again, kind of maybe the thing for smaller items that you're looking at, although I know they have a much bigger project. So again, just an idea to spark your thinking. And the final one I'll mention is a one called TaskRabbit. And this is a kind of a whole different arena. But as a business owner, you may have a lot of things that just take up your time away from the office or whatever. So TaskRabbit will actually help with tasks that just need to be done. And I'm looking at their website, they partner with IKEA. So obviously, if you need people to put together IKEA furniture, they might be something. But some of the other skills they offer is, moving boxes for you. You may have not a continual process, but something you need to just get delivered, maybe to a customer, but maybe just across town. Delivery of things. Maybe there's just, again, not an ongoing process, but something you need a delivery for. But then they'll clean a bathroom or a kitchen. Okay, there may be a special cleanup you want to do in your factory. It's one of those things where you can kind of pick and choose, and I encourage you to kind of look through there and browse the options that what might be available for that. So what are some of the next steps? I'm always about what you can do now that you have some information here, some awareness, what can you do with it? And how do you develop an action and a learning plan? Well, going back to the very first piece with Chris Ducker's book, draft the 3 lists of work. Sit down and start writing. What do you don't like doing? What do you don't know how to do, but you think needs to be done in your business? And then what are the things you shouldn't be doing? Yes, you know how to do them, but it's probably not your highest value-added piece of work. And then obviously the next step would be to download the PDF for this show. And, you can just literally start making notes on it as you go through your day. Another way is just to capture what's going on in your day. As you think about it, carry it around with you and make a note. I don't really need to do this. I could tell somebody else or show somebody else how to do this. And then obviously I recommend go to those websites, the books that I mentioned or these actual task sites. Just browse through them, see what's there, and see if that, again, helps spark your thinking on some of these things. So that wraps up this episode. And now the next topic in our series is going to be lessons from the book Toyota Talent. So again, this will be more of an internal. What do we do once we've got the talent? We've got it in the door. Some of these things in Toyota Talent will apply to virtual teams as well as on-site teams. But again, that will be what we work on next, and that'll kind of wrap up this series on understanding workforce and acquiring workforce and talent. Once again, I also want you to be sure you download the notes for this session and also to sign up for the email list. And that way you can easily get future updates when I've posted new podcasts. Some of you are catching this on iTunes. Some of you are catching it through social media. The email list, just be sure to sign up because then you can be sure you'll be notified when things happen. And then finally, I would obviously love to have you share a comment, drop me a line. If anything sparks some thinking, or if you have further questions, please shout out and I'll be happy to let you know. Thanks for listening and have a great week.